I'm going to create a stunning mixed media background using distress inks and embossing powder. Hey everyone, it's Joy here and welcome to my channel. Let me share a few of the products that I'm going to be using today. I have the Sizzix and 49 and Market, these gorgeous butterflies. They are the painted butterflies is what they're called. And this is Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous. It's a stamp and stencil. And then I am using the black and white polka dots rub-on transfers from scrapbook.com. Now I have a piece of white mixed media cardstock that measures 5 inches by 5 inches. I have my piece of acetate and I smushed on my dried marigold, spritzed it, that's right, with my distress sprayer. And now I'm just going to add that to the right half of my card. I do want to leave some white space, and we're just going to add layering on for our mixed media look for our gorgeous background. This background just turned out so pretty. I was so happy with it. I am spritzing my background because I want that ink to kind of move around a bit more. I don't want it to be super splotchy. I also don't want to lose some of the separation in the little areas of ink, so I didn't want to overdo the water either. But if you wanted something a bit softer, a bit smoother, just add more water, kind of tilt your cardstock, and then your ink can kind of run together and become softer. Then on my work surface, and I'm using scrapbook.com's silicone matte for all of my ink blending because it just wipes up so easy. I squished down my squeezed lemonade, added a little bit of water, and then I'm just going to splatter this background. Now I will say, by the time I was done, you really couldn't see the squeezed lemonade splatter, so you could leave that out or add a different color. Then I'm doing the same thing with the dried marigold, and I'm going to go a bit heavier, but kind of keeping it in where we already have the color laid down. I used my heat tool to dry that. I am using this gorgeous stamp and stencil from Stampers Anonymous and Tim Holtz. It doesn't have a name, but it is listed and linked for you guys below in the description. I just thought this stencil was absolutely stunning, and right now I just realized that I had this backwards. How funny is that? It didn't matter. It totally worked for what I was doing, and I mean, I guess you could just have it either way. I am going to use Kitsch Flamingo to just lightly blend through on this right hand side. I want some of these, I can't remember what these little tiles are called. They kind of just have this Moroccan vibe to me, but I think they're so beautiful, and right now the name is just escaping me. And I don't want to go super heavy. I do have some darker areas of pink, and then I want to go lighter. I don't want to cover up all of that ink that we just laid down on the background, but I do love that the pink from the Kitsch Flamingo with the dried marigold just gives this beautiful blend of color, and I just think it's so yummy. I'm going to do a little bit more here, and then you can see that there are some flowers on the stencil, and I do want to add a few of those just really lightly. Most of them you're not going to notice on the background overall, but I think this is one of those cards that when you're looking at the background, you're going to find tons of little surprises by little things. So the flowers are one of them. Like I didn't cover everything up. I still can see a few of those. I think they're so pretty, or a couple of those. We're going to add something else that you kind of have to look for, and I think that's kind of fun, especially with a mixed media background. You kind of just have all these little areas of just goodness and just things that are so pretty. I do want to use a couple of these butterflies, and I will stamp these with dried marigold, and I'm going to stamp them off onto my matte first. So really I'm getting a second generation stamping, and I really kind of want these just mixed into the background. So I'm going to do, I think I do 4 total butterflies. I do 2 different butterflies from that stamp set, and these butterflies are so gorgeous. So I'm going to add that to the top there. I'm going to change this out, and then grab one more butterfly, and I'm going to stamp that. I think I stamped that a couple times. But these are so pretty. And again, stamping it off, and then second generation stamping it so it's nice and light. Now I also decided that I want to blur these lines a little bit on the butterflies, and so what I'm going to do is take my distress sprayer and just lightly spray over those butterflies, let the water sit for a second, and then I can dab off the excess water with a dry towel. So I'm going to do that just a little bit. I don't want big splotches of water. I just kind of want the fine mist from the distress sprayer. And as it kind of sits and dries, those lines blur out nicely. Okay, then we have the painted butterflies, and those two parts that I'm pointing to, you can put on the solid butterfly, but I'm going to put this as the part of the background. So here's where now we're going to bring in some embossing powder. I am going to use gold. I love gold everything. And I thought this would be fun. You're going to see bits of this come from underneath the butterflies that we are going to stamp here in just a minute. So I do have them facing in different directions. I turned on my heat tool so that can get nice and hot. I'm going to prep this with an anti-static powder tool. That way little pieces of embossing powder doesn't stick. And I also made sure that my cardstock from all of that inking is nice and dry. I'm going to ink this up with a clear embossing ink. I am using VersaMark ink for this. And I am someone who inks up 2 or 3 times, usually 3. I really want to make sure that I'm getting a nice, good, solid image, especially because I already have this beautiful background. I want to make sure that all of the embossing from the whole image is going to, or the whole image is going to be covered with embossing powder. So I'm going to wipe that off really quick because it does have some excess powder on it. And then I can sprinkle on my gold embossing powder. I'm just going to use a scratch piece of paper to grab or to contain my embossing powder. But as soon as we put this on here, you're going to see just how beautiful it is. And I love this background. I love it's just so artistic. It's so random. I just love that it looks like little particles are going off of the main area of that stamp. I think it's so, so pretty. So let me get this embossing powder out of the way. I'm going to heat this up until everything is nice and melted and shiny. But if you don't want to do gold, you could do anything. You could do clear, you could do white, you could do a different color, however you want to. But I just love the gold, and I think the shiny of the embossing powder against the background looks so pretty. Here's the solid stamps. Ignore that yellow butterfly because I didn't like what was happening with that. I inked up this larger butterfly with Salvaged Patina. I spritzed it with a little bit of water and stamped it again. I did not clean off the ink in between. It gives it just a little bit of a softer look from the ink pad, because like the ink pad, I think you can see sometimes the fabric, and just spritzing your stamp just with a little bit of water with the ink that's left on there and stamping it again kind of softens that. Then I'm taking this next layer and inking that up. Again, ignore the yellow because I'm going to redo that, but inking it up with Kitsch Flamingo, and so it just layers on top and you have this beautiful background. Let's do this smaller butterfly in Kitsch Flamingo, and then I'm going to bring in Salvaged Patina. So really I'm using the same colors, just reversing how I do it. I'm going to layer on this second piece, and I love that it does not cover the whole butterfly, so you get this really gorgeous kind of watercolor look. I'm going to ink that up, and I'm going to spritz it just softly one time with a little bit of water. Let's stamp the other images for the butterflies on some vellum. We're going to do some more heat embossing with the gold embossing powder. The vellum, my vellum can handle heat as long as you don't hold it on there for too long, your heat gun. Prepped it with my powder tool, anti-static powder tool, inking it up again with my vellum. Nope, with my ink, not vellum, with my clear embossing ink. And I'm just checking. I want to make sure that I can see that all of the lines stamped really good. I usually don't have a problem with the VersaMark ink, but I still always like to check, because the one time I don't check would be the one time I would have an issue. Let's sprinkle on that embossing powder, and then we are going to heat this again with the heat tool. And just make sure your heat tool is on, getting nice and hot, then it melts everything really fast and it just warps your paper way less. I am using the coordinating dies to die cut out the solid butterflies and the vellum butterflies. I'm going to tape that in place with some low tack mint tape. But I just love those backgrounds of those butterflies. They're so pretty. Okay, then once I was done with that, I'm going to bring in these white polka dots from scrapbook.com. These are the rub-on transfers. This is kind of one of the things that I was talking about that's just a little bit hidden in the background, and you kind of get peekaboos of them, and especially off camera in person, you really can see them come through. And I just like the idea of bringing in some more white and having polka dots over top of the stenciled areas, the inked areas. I think it just turned out really, really pretty. I am using my Pick Pro tool, the little, I don't even know, it almost looks like a little clear acrylic spatula on the end, but it's so perfect for burnishing. But you do get in the rub-on transfers a little like popsicle stick. So look at how pretty that is. And I did speed that part up, sorry guys, but you know, it takes a long time to rub those rub-ons. I'm going to put some of those on the butterflies as well. I think that's a fun little added detail. It looks so pretty, and it does not have to be perfect. I think that's what's great about mixed media cards and things, that they're not perfect. They are very artistic and very free, and I have really been enjoying doing these. Okay, let's add a little bit of glue on the bottom of the butterfly. I did bend up the wings of the ones, well, both of them, but the vellum ones will be bent up a lot more. I'm going to just do a tiny bit of glue, kind of hiding it behind the embossing powder, and then placing that down on the solid butterflies. Let's just press that down, and then I'm going to set those aside so that glue has time to adhere before I decide to start really bending up the butterfly wings, but I did bend them a little bit before gluing. Now I put that background back in my MISTI. I am using the sentiment from that stamp and stencil combo. It says there is beauty in simplicity. I am going to do the heat embossing on this, and this is going to be part of our background, part of the beautiful gold embossing. I wasn't sure. My thought was originally, am I going to stamp it on vellum or am I going to stamp it on the background? And I'm really glad I chose the background. It looks so pretty, and it just looks like it's just part of it. And I think that that turned out really lovely. I want to distress the edges a bit with my scissors. I like that rough white edge showing, so I'm not going to do any ink blending, to the edges, just my scissors and a little bit of roughing that up. And I do want to say my card base, because I feel like I'm going to forget. My card base is going to measure 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. So it's going to be slightly bigger than my background piece. I'm adhering my butterflies onto those little spots that we did that beautiful gold embossing, but I want part of it to peek out. So I'm kind of turning the butterflies a little bit, moving them over so you can get a peekaboo of that. And then you can bend up your butterfly wings once the glue has dried so you can see all of that beautiful gold embossing underneath. I'm adding some gold sequins to the background just to kind of add a little something extra. And I'm just going to glue those in place. And then we can take a look at this card. And I have to say, I absolutely love this card. This turned out better than I thought it would in my mind, and I love when I'm surprised that way. But let's take a look at how beautiful this is. The inking, the stenciling, you have the rub-ons, you have gold embossing powder, you have vellum, you have mixed media paper. You have all kinds of things to make this a mixed media card, and it just is so stunning with the gold embossing powder. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. I hope you feel inspired by this project, and I hope you have an amazing day.